So right now we're removing them from the page. We're updating the presentation, but not our internal state, not the data within our JavaScript, that array that we're using to maintain the list. Again, the stuff in the DOM, that's just presentation. That's just presenting the data. The real data lives in this array. How do we remove it from the array? Who did it? Who removed it from the array? Yeah, Brandon. Oh, tell me how you did it. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so search through the index for the current item. In his case, he compared the text content to the value in the array. And then use array splice to remove it from the array. Who used array splice? So is your array an array of strings or an array of objects? Okay. Who searched a different way? I want the, personally, like the the flick is more than just its name. It has an ID, maybe it has some other things about it too, like whether it's my favorite, right? So I want to put the actual object in the array, ideally. Okay, so search through it looking for the ID. Gabby? Yeah, from the array. Okay. And I would grab that index and reference it in the list and splice. Okay. So basically having a piece of data in the DOM that makes it really easy to find that thing. In this case, the array index. We looked at how to add a data attribute. We could do something like that, and we could use the actual ID if we wanted. That's a good way, and that'll probably be pretty fast too, because it's really easy to actually find the sucker. So let's see how we can search through the array. I'm going to do it by ID because I think we can learn some interesting things that way. So we learned to remove something from an array in general. We know it's going to be like this.flicks.splice something. So let's look at array splice. Splice method changes the contents of an array by removing existing elements and or adding new elements. First argument is the index at which to start changing it. So that's going to be the position of the current one. And then the second one, the number of elements to remove. So we know the second one is going to be 1, right? So something 1. And it's this first one that we're going to have to figure out. So thinking through what Gabby suggested, we know that one of these days, because our customers have already asked for it, we're going to make it so that you can reorder them on the page, right? If we do that, the index, and we update the array to match, the index is going to change too, right? So we would have to make sure that we update that thing, that place where she stored the index, which sounds like more work, and thus more opportunities to make an error. So I'm gonna stick with the ID as the thing that I look for. So how do I search through it looking for the ID? I need to loop through this thing somehow, right? So we could say something like, so we need to find the flick in the array. I'm not storing them as list items. I'm not storing the DOM elements. I'm storing an object, just an object with just the data. That's because that's another way that it would be easier in some respects. If it were the actual DOM element that's in the array, it's a little easier to remove them. But we want that to be a pure data thing. The actual list items, that's totally a presentation thing. So I'm trying to keep them as separate as I can. If I wanted to save them to a database later, I wouldn't want to save HTML to it. Because again, we might serve the same data some other way, like over an API. Yeah, Brandon. Originally I said this.flicks push flick, and then I changed it to unshift instead of push, because that adds it to the beginning instead of the end. Gotcha. Yeah, I want this whole object in there. All right, so I could loop over the array using like a for loop. Anybody have another idea for how to search through? Okay. So find the flick in the array. What's the array? This.flicks. So we want to say for here is one place where we can't use const because we're going to keep reassigning our counter. So let I equal 0. I less than this.flicks.length. I plus plus. Same for loop syntax as other C-like languages. Okay, so what's the current item in the array now? That would be this.flicks square bracket I, right? And what do we want to compare that to? We want to compare the IDs. Agreed? So this.flicks square bracket I dot ID, because remember I just stored that data object in the array. And I'm comparing it to something. So we have the list item dataset ID. Remember how we did that? How we set that? Item.dataset.id. So we want to compare those two things. Excuse me? Good question. Does it just completely exist? It does seem like a good idea to do that at the very end. But hey, I'm curious. Let's find out. I'm going to comment this out for the moment. Let's just do a quick console log list item dot dataset dot ID. After removing it. And another one. So if I click remove, I want to see it console log 3, right? It did. Remove does not blow that object away. It just removes it from its parent. It's not in the DOM anymore. It's not on the page, but the object is still intact. We could put it back. So you could do this after you call remove. It may not feel like that makes a whole lot of sense, so feel free to remove that to the end if you want to. Okay, so we need to compare those two things. So if list item dot dataset dot ID equals that thing. You know about double equal versus triple equal in JavaScript? Does anybody know that? So basically, double equal will do some type conversion automatically, which can be super unpredictable because JavaScript is real dang weird about how it does that stuff. As a general rule, just always use triple equal. This happens to be a case where right now double equal would work here, triple equal will not. I don't care. I'm going to use triple equal anyway, because if there's going to be some type conversion going on, I want to do the type conversion because I want to know what the heck's going on. So this will kind of illustrate the point and the difference a little clearer if we do it ourselves. So let's say if the IDs are equal, what do we do then? We splice. Huh? Either way. But, okay, so we could say, yeah, we can save ourselves a variable. This dot flicks dot splice, right? This line. First argument is the index, I. Second is the number of things to delete, just the one. And if I just left it like that, it's going to go through every single thing, even if it's already found its match. So we do need a break. Yep. Now I promised this wouldn't work. Let's watch it not work. This dot flicks. I'm sorry, not this. App, thank you. App.flicks. Remove. Oh, we got bigger problems. Cannot read property length of undefined. Don't panic. Let's look in our code and see what this is. Cannot read property length of undefined on line 51. We're calling length on this dot flicks. So it's saying this dot flicks is undefined. What gives? We've been betrayed. Yes, but let's. Yeah. You're right. You're right. Just a second. Sorry. What do you think, Connor? What's going on here? So this dot flicks isn't the dang array. So what is this at this point? The event target. Not the object. We didn't bind. Right? So when we set up the event listener, we have to bind this. And that's why I did event.target instead of this. Because down the road, I knew I was going to change this to something else. Even if you don't need to do that yet, it's a pretty common thing to do. So if I really need the target, I'm in the habit of using the target. Not that that won't trip us up at some point in the near future. But we'll see. All right, so let's try that. I should at least get a different error. Or some different unexpected behavior. Add for JP. Remove one. Disappears there. What about app.flicks, the array? they're both there still. Why? I'm going to throw a debugger inside my loop so that I can inspect the values of these variables. Because I was expecting them to be equal. List item, data set ID, and this flicks ID. Refresh. Remove one. Okay, there's my breakpoint. What do I have? I is 0. List item is that. This is the object. Lovely. So the two things I want to compare. List item dataset ID. The string 1. This dot flicks ID. The number 2, not 1. The first time through the loop. Next time through the loop, this flicks ID is 1, and dataset ID is the string 1. Those are not the same thing. Yes, if we use double equal, JavaScript will do the type conversion for us, but we want to reinforce the notion that it's doing type conversion. So we're going to use triple equal all the time. We want these things to be exactly the same. Yep. So when we add the event listener, you tell it what function to call. And we don't just want to call this.remove flick. We want to call this.remove flick bound to this. So what can we do here? I'm going to say const current ID equals the one out of the array converted to a string. And then I'll use it here. How do we feel about const versus let here? Let's see. Let's see if it explodes. Whackety smackety, whackety smackety, whackety smackety. Get the middle one. Seemed to work. So it's local to the loop, and it looks like it might be local to each time through the loop. It's okay, we're not reassigning it. On the other hand, if we had used const, it would have blown up. Because it's that same variable that sticks around that we call ++ on. Okay, that seemed to do it. Remove flicks from the array. And that's the real source of our data, that array. The other thing is just presentation.